fiesta in Madrid. No way, we have high energy and ready to go. Sorry, I had to wave to my band. I'm making noise here, people, am I?
That's your earring. It's your earring.
Oh, I need to stop moving. Sorry, guys. You'd think after 13 years at South Summit and emceeing on the stage.
Come on, I sorted it.
I should know the little details. Had to say hi to the band because we've actually had the same band for about 10 years. So
Hey,
it's
band.
like super good friends. So it's like, surprise.
Sweet Home Alabama.
Surprise, everybody. I haven't seen you since last June. I've been busy incubating something here. So you're not going to see me on stage as much this year, but I miss you guys and I love it. And I'm so glad to be able to be here with
Likewise.
Dan, who's the first timer at South Summit.
First time.
Excellent.
And wonderful to be here. Lovely to be here in Madrid. Such a wonderful place. I
We
wish I could stay a bit longer. I wish I could stay for the birth of your baby.
You've got a whole month. You've got a whole month to go.
It's coming sooner.
next
coming
year,
soon.
make more time for you. No, so we have a little insider phrase at South Summit.
Oh, yes?
Once South Summit, always South Summit.
Oh, well, I'm always south.
So now you've been initiated, you are welcome to join
absolutely
us
great.
at all of our events around the world throughout the year.
Oh, even better.
And come back again even next year and make maximum advantage of this beautiful city and what's going on here. Guys, it's a total luxury today that we have Dan with us, literally zipping in and out from London. London is such a powerhouse of an ecosystem, you know, and makes us pretty envious, but we're coming up in the world and getting stronger every other year. But the wealth of experience these entrepreneurs that are coming in to share with us at this edition of South Summit is mind-blowing, and I don't even want to share it, but four decades of building companies in lots of different industries, always at the cutting edge of technology. Dan has learned a lot of lessons and I'm sure had a lot of ups and downs along the way, and is now leading Resolve AI, which is a tech company revolutionizing the retail sector.
Absolutely.
I guess.
Everything's revolutionary.
Of course, and led by you guys, which is so nice. And I just want to kind of kick off and start at the beginning, like, you know, your own backstory and understand the person behind the company a little bit. Was entrepreneurship like an obvious choice for you, or a bug that you know that you just couldn't get rid of, or a hunger there, or
So
how did you get
I
involved?
started my first company in 1984, and I know that you can't believe that given how youthful I look. So I was only 2 years old at the time. But seriously, I was 20 years old in 1984, and I started my first company, which was the first commercial online information platform. So we digitized newspapers, trade journals, and periodicals, and made them available for access online. Now, 1984 was 5 years before Tim Berners-Lee presented the concept of the World Wide Web at CERN, and 8 years before we started using www, and 11 years before Amazon started their business. So you might ask, how on earth did I fall into that? Well, I left school at 16, and I worked in a hi-fi shop. I worked in a music equipment shop. And,
I remember hi-fis.
Yeah, they used to be called hi-fi back then. And then I got a job running around in an ad agency. And when I was working in the ad agency, there was a client of ours, British Telecom, and they were talking about fax machines and how these fax machines are going to change the way you can transmit data from one place to another by putting a piece of paper into a machine that comes out the other end. So I was like, what? You know, I mean, this is 1982. So I was like, what? You know, so I looked into it a bit more by speaking to the people at BT, and they said, well, actually what's happening is there is kind of a small computer on one end and there's a small computer on the other hand, and it's decoding data. And I said, well, what else can you do with that? And they said, well, you can actually, if you have a computer on the other end, you could ask questions of it. So that sort of made me, I thought, okay, well, I'll leave and set up a company to do that. It was just stupid. And so I was able to be the first. And so that business went on to become the world leader in online information over the next 16 years. And in fact, probably everybody who was in business at that time would have used it, either to search news or to search patents or to search chemicals or aerospace engineering during the 90s and so on.
And this was all B2B at this point, was it? Like
It was all B2B, but it was all B2B. But then I launched MSN with Bill Gates, and I went around the world with Bill because we were providing all the content behind MSN in those very early days, 1995. And I also provided all the content, news, stock quotes to AOL, to Yahoo, to CompuServe, there was a service called CompuServe and others. Those are the consumer-based services, but our main business was providing information to corporate libraries, which had changed, from being physical libraries where you would cut bits of paper out and put it in a file to a digital one. And I remember I used to go into a library with this huge portable computer, and I was like to carry it like this, wobbling into a meeting room, and I would put it down, and I'd have this acoustic coupler where you'd get a phone and you'd plunge it into this thing. I mean, you wouldn't believe it, and it would tick across the screen like a telex back then. And I would say, this is the future. You don't need this library anymore, and all these librarians who are working for you, you can just use this terminal from us and search the newspapers. And, often I'd be thrown out of the place. But over time, that became something that was attractive. And in 1986, 87, 88, we started to get traction, and it took off from there. But I think that, that experience was, for me, a learning experience, because I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't studied in university. I wasn't very good at school. I didn't fit in at school very well, and so I was learning on the job. And throughout that whole period, of which I remained the CEO, and we listed on the London stock market and we listed on NASDAQ before I sold it to Thomson Reuters in 2000. It was a learning experience, an education.
Incredible.
And I think that, if there's loads of entrepreneurs in the room, far more accomplished than me, I'm sure, but many who are thinking of being entrepreneurs, or those who are thinking of starting a business. And, I always say this when I'm invited very nicely by places like South Summit to speak, that you just need to jump in with both feet. Just do it, You only get going by doing it. You can't analyze that this is going to be the best thing in the market or not the best thing. And there's so many things get thrown in your way. But it's the determination to see it through that really, in the end of the day, creates a successful business. It doesn't even matter if you've got a very poor product in comparison to everybody else. If you've got the determination to succeed, you can improve that over time. You can, what do they call it now, pivot along the way.
It's a fascinating story. I don't even know where to start. We're going to come back and dive in deeper on a couple of those points. It's just incredible to me to hear and to learn. But it seems like entrepreneurs we all have a mix of emotions, right? And this year's theme is human by design. And human emotion and the complexity of human emotion is, quite unique to humans, let's say, for now. But for entrepreneurs, I wish there was like a radar that you had to understand that kind of mix, because it seems that you guys really, through gut, passion, and determination, override the fear. You know what I mean? That maybe other segments of society
I think that's a very good point, and I think I have a great deal of admiration for those entrepreneurs who leave corporate jobs in their 30s and start them, because that's really taking a risk. They've got a job, they've got something. Well, when I left, I had nothing. I was a runner in an agency. They were paying me nothing. They were literally paying me nothing. I was running around, and I was getting the tea, and it was like, I had nothing to lose.
The cost of failure was low.
Yeah, and prior to that, I was working in a musical equipment store. But I didn't have anything to lose. So my company was, it blowing up and not succeeding was no worse than I was in at the beginning. But it seems to be the
common trend of diving straight in. I love that, because you cannot possibly plan and predict, right? So our partners here are IE University, and I used to run their Startup Accelerator program at the MBA school. And no disrespect to MBA, is incredible school. But the MBAs were like, but this is the plan, but I was like, but where's the customer? But where's the customer? Come back with a customer, and then we figure out the plan, and that dive right in is almost counterintuitive sometimes.
You can't figure out.
There's no other way.
You don't know who the customers might not be, what they want. You end up with a product, you think that's the right thing, then you go and see a customer, and they go, no, that's not quite right, I want this and I want that. You just got to go and do it. I mean, the real challenge, I think, is the lack of confidence, and certainly in my case, people around you saying, oh, no, don't do that. My mother burst into tears. She was crying her eyes out. You've just got a job. You've just got the first decent job after working in a musical equipment store for 2 years, right? And now you've got a job in an ad agency, and you're on a path, and you're going to throw that away and start this mad thing with data, But she was concerned as a parent, but I think the point is that impacts you. You go, maybe she's right, I shouldn't do it. But you just got to trust your instincts and go for it.
I think we've come a long way culturally in that sense. You know what I mean? That entrepreneurship has become so popularized, let's say, for better or for worse. And definitely, I'm in Madrid about 15 years now, and South Summit is 13 years old. And that was a huge barrier at the beginning here culturally. You know what I mean? The fact that leaving a steady job or not working for the government, and that's a very European, I think, set of values as well. That I think we've quite quickly come over, actually, in the space of about 10 years. It's not easy to change a culture, and it's far more open and accepted and common now that people are starting.
Well, it's events like this that drive an entrepreneurial culture across Europe. This is fantastic. I mean, people. It gives a voice. I mean, when I started, again, going back to those days, when I went in to see a VC to raise money, I was 20 and I looked 12. And I went into to see a VC, and they said, "Oh, is Mr. Wagner coming?" I said, "Yeah, no, that's me." And they said, "Oh, get out of my office, sonny." So, that was the kind of attitude back in the early 80s. There was no culture of young entrepreneurs. And when I ran a public company, when it eventually went listed on the London stock market, I was the youngest CEO of a public company in the UK at that time, and I was 30. Now, when you're 30 today and you run a public company, people don't think that's very young. They think that's... So the attitudes have changed, and they've become a lot more accepting of entrepreneurial endeavor. I think that's a very good thing.
What I think is totally inspiring and incredible about your first venture, and I don't know how much of a technology background or training you have, but to kind of understand and see the potential of the technology that you were exposed to and taking it to that next level, to be almost before its time, but then when MSN and everybody else now came in with the user interface, you were there ready with the data.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So that's almost like creating your own market opportunity or preparing earlier on, like the famous stories like Netflix and things like this, that shipping out DVDs because they knew the streaming was coming. They just had to slog it out for 20 years.
I'm not sure I analysed it anything like as intelligently or analytically as that. I think I just thought, oh, this is cool. You can ask a question and get an answer from this computer. So if I had newspapers on there, that'd be cool. But obviously, as time went on, I became more sophisticated with technology and more sophisticated with what I was doing. As I said, I learned on the job. And in those days, again, there was no e-commerce tools. You couldn't get a Shopify store or Magento. You couldn't get some search technology. We had to develop our own search technology. We had to develop our own commerce tools. We had to build our own data centers. So when I sold the business, we had huge city block data centers, one in Palo Alto, one in Singapore, one in Bern, Switzerland, that were servicing the world. We were operating in 192 countries. It was a big operation. And and that's obviously what led me into my next business, which was an e-commerce platform, which I set up in 1998 called Vendor. And Vendor was a cloud-based or internet-delivered platform for enterprise customers. And that company ended up providing the technology to Carrefour and Tesco and Boohoo and ASOS and Neiman Marcus and Land's End and many, many other companies. It was market leader in Europe. Excuse me, market leader in Europe. And then I sold that to Oracle in 2014.
So that was more back-end infrastructure to...
No, that was like if you arrived at the website for Tesco, that was us running the entire infrastructure. They were uploading their catalogs, but we were running payments, we were running search, we were running the whole thing, which is not too dissimilar to the information business. It was a kind of a, sort of a...
Content to commerce kind of...
Content, and we were doing commerce, we were doing search, so kind of familiar, it's just products this time. Excuse me, and we were doing payments. And then that business is now called Oracle Commerce Cloud. They bought it from me, and they run it as their main commerce platform, so kind of happy with that. But then I had the great blow-up, right, which came for me late in my career. I was 52 when my next business blew up. It was called Power, P-O-W-A, and my vision around Power was around mobile commerce and mobile engagement, and me and investors plowed in $245 million, a lot of which was mine, not anymore because it disappeared, and that business blew up. And then I found myself at 52 just completely astonished that I'd had a failure when I'd had two huge successes. I kind of thought, well, how did that happen? I thought I was bulletproof. And that's a dangerous thing that happens to people when they kind of get comfortable with things. And I got comfortable, to be fair. I was on auto drive. And then I thought, what am I going to do now? Now, first of all, I was discredited because the UK media love to beat you up. So you don't have to search too far on Google to see some horrific portrayals of me, which are highly unfair, totally unfair.
Well, success has many fathers, no? And failure has one.
Yeah. But that's why we called my next company Resolve, because the resolve in the English language has two meanings. One is it addresses something or translates something. So resolve in terms of mobile commerce is a engagement facilitator. But resolve is also my resolve, my steely entrepreneurial spirit to just, fuck you, I'm going to do it again, kind of thing, right? Am I allowed to say fuck you in the audience? It gets bleeped out. Gets bleeped out. You Irish, you say that all the time.
Bleep it out of the translator,
you say that all the
time.
Fine. So, there was a kind of, definitely a feeling of that. And, in a funny way, it was the most entrepreneurial moment as it was in my very first company. Having to do that again. I got so used to very wonderful lifestyle and trappings and stuff, and I thought, I'm going to lose that now. I'm going to lose everything now. I've lost my reputation. I have to rebuild my reputation. I have to rebuild everything. And that journey has been kind of exhilarating in a very challenging way. It's been the most difficult, but it's also been the most exhilarating. And again, I'd say to you, it's just another thing, determination and commitment and a desire to get something done can overcome any obstacle, any obstacle. And I say to my daughters, one of them who's an entrepreneur, has just started a business, for an influencer marketing business called Invited. She's 23. But I said to my daughters for years, I said, every single day you get up is another day to create something. And yes, whatever happened yesterday is kind of irrelevant. If you live in the past, you're kind of depressed. And if you live in the future, you're all anxious. Oh shit, what's going to happen tomorrow? It's all going to go wrong. Oh, it's all going to go wrong. But if you live in the moment, we're sitting here. It's very nice, isn't it? So I'm sitting here with you. It's lovely. This is a nice room. You're all having a nice time, I hope. So when you live in the moment, there isn't any issue, hopefully, right?
And it's the only place you can set up future success.
Well, it's you move in this moment, right? We're in this moment now, and what I do in a minute is what I'm doing. I'm making that decision now. So you build the future based upon your actions at this very moment. So that's why I say to you, just go and do it, because every moment you do after that is your ability to create, is your ability to succeed. And and for those of you who are already entrepreneurs and already doing that, don't be disheartened by what happened yesterday. I'll give you one good example. Can I?
Please.
I'm way talking too much. I'm not giving you a chance. What about the
Isn't this
baby?
awesome?
You haven't had a chance to
I just
get
need
the
the
baby
popcorn. I'm just like, wow, I could listen forever.
All right, so after I sold my first company, the big information business, I was used to having secretaries and offices all over the world, and it was all very nice. And when I started the second business, although I was kind of okay financially, but I was in my car doing sales meetings. I was out on the road. It was a smaller business, and I remember getting in my car and driving all the way up to Bradford, which is near Leeds in the north of England. It's about 3.5 hour drive. And England, as you probably know, is always raining and miserable. And it was a horrible, pouring with rain day. And when I got there, I got out my car and I had to walk across a car park, and it rained so much on me that I got all damp. When you get all damp and you're
soggy.
I was all soggy. I got into the reception with my PC case, and I said, hello, I got a meeting with the IT director. And they said, okay, come up. And I went in. I sat in this guy's office, which was all glass, and it looked out over all his developers, all like plugging away on their computers. And he said, would you like a cup of tea? I said, I'm all soaking wet. I said, I'd love a cup of tea. So he gave me a cup of tea. So he said, so what's this all about? I said, well, I've got this platform, and you can run your entire e-commerce infrastructure from the internet. You don't need to have your own machines. You don't need to have your own software here. You can just upload your content. You can upload your products. He said, okay, thanks very much. Goodbye. Not interested. I said, well, I've only just been here 2 minutes. I haven't even finished my tea. He said, I'm sorry. Not interested. I've got other things to do. Goodbye. So I thought, oh. So I got up and I walked out. I was kind of all like miserable, and I went out and I got out and it was pouring rain. I had to walk across the car park in the rain, and then I got in my car and it was all damp smelling because of my clothes. And for the next 3.5 hours, I was driving home all damp and miserable. Right? I'd spent all this time for a 5-minute meeting. Anyway, the next day I won the BBC as a customer. So even though you have the most awful, shitty day, the next day you win a major account. Changes everything.
Totally disconnected, then if one day to the next, it doesn't have
That's
to
why every day is an
in.
opportunity.
Yeah, it's amazing. No, it's incredible. I love what you were saying there about, I suppose, fear and failure. And how different was it for you to jump into that first company when you had nothing to lose, to
Nothing to
jump
lose.
into Resolve with so much to lose? Or, you know what I mean? Like, were they different
You mean
processes?
Resolve or the first
Like
one?
when you were saying, after getting used to the trimmings and the trappings of success.
Oh, I did
you
it
know, coming
immediately. There was
back.
no other. It was immediate. The moment the other business went down, I started building the deck for the new company.
Wow.
But it was a carry on of the old one. I mean, it was Phoenix from the Flames. But it was absolutely within, after I got over the shock first day, I said, right, let's build the business. Literally the next day.
So this philosophy of kind of just taking one day at a time and leaving the past where it is kind of...
You have to.
Trait.
It applies to everything in life. It applies to everything in my view. It's a great
Incredible.
mantra.
It must be, it gives you great resilience, I guess,
It does, but I think that's one of the major traits of successful entrepreneurs anyway. You have to be committed to the end goal, and you have to keep going, whatever it throws at you.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about Resolve AI and what is the opportunity you've spotted there? What is the technology? What is the business?
Well, look, it's kind of another iteration of my experience, which is commerce and search. My view is that the existing e-commerce that we're used to today, which is navigating by a category and then a subcategory and then a subcategory and then you get some results and then you filter it down, then you get it's kind of, what is that? I'm partly responsible for creating it, but it's not a very good user experience. And then the other thing is that we are very mobile now. So I wanted to create a new commerce platform for the mobile device, which we've created. And I also wanted to create a kind of conversational product discovery engine, which is using Gen AI. And we started developing that in 2017. So we have our own language model and our own AI assets. And basically it means you can just speak to your phone or speak to the web and say, I want 2 tickets to New York. You could be speaking to the Iberia or the BA website, or you could be speaking to Expedia or Travelocity, or you could be speaking to Best Buy, or it doesn't matter what it is. You could say, I need a mobile phone for my 14-year-old daughter. She uses social media a lot. She takes lots of photos and videos. I don't want to spend too much money. What do you recommend? Now, you can't do that with e-commerce. You can do that in a physical store today, speaking to a allegedly intelligent salesperson, but they often aren't. They often get their phones out and go, well, let me have a look. It's like, well, we can do that. But when you do it to an e-commerce site, you need to know about megabytes and pixels, and which a lot of people don't know. So a lot of people can't use e-commerce for things that they don't know about. They have to go and get advice. Well, we changed that by allowing me to talk to the best salesman you could possibly have, having ingested all the product manuals, all the reviews, everything. So when you ask a question, you get a fantastic response. So that's kind of what Resolve AI does. It's a transformational commerce stack for retailers, right? So
is this something that can be used in the store or online? It
can be used in store, it can be used online, it can be used in those drive-in, Dunkin' Donuts, which I never go to, promise, never ever go to them. Occasionally, maybe once or twice. When you drive in, you say, I'd like to have a jam donut and a coffee. Often what happens is that the people speaking into those things don't speak great English, and the people at the other end don't speak great English. You get a lot of misconceptions. So Brain sits in the middle, Resolve's Brain, and it can speak in any language, 95 languages. So I can speak in Spanish, and the person at the other end could be in English, could get the order in English. So it's online and it's offline. But I think the key thing is that if I go to Harrods today, which is a big department store in London, you probably know, the salespeople in Harrods, it's a destination. But I don't know who goes to the Harrods website. Probably nobody, right? Because why would you go there? But if the Harrods website had the same level of customer service and knowledge about the products that you get when you go in the store, then you might go to the Harrods and say, I'm looking for a household fan for my office. What do you recommend? And you get proper answers, intelligent answers, because Harrods have contributed the right data. Or if you go to a designer website, I don't know, Prada, and the designer for this season has actually entered all the data about why they're using these fabrics and everything else. When you ask a question about these trousers, you get a really good answer, or this dress, or whatever it is. And I think that that's the next stage of commerce. The next stage of commerce is a much higher level of experience of dealing with the most knowledgeable salesperson, but it's AI generated.
This is super interesting because it feels like an interesting time for retail, because when the whole big data wave came on board, this was the dream. It's like it's personalization, it's like more and rich information, but it feels like the user interface wasn't there until we had the Gen AI to kind of make it a more human experience, let's say, or make it more seamless technology to use.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you see retailers are ready for this? I think consumers are probably ready for this.
I think retailers are ready for it. I mean, they've been nervous about the hallucinations that AI has, where they make mistakes or it recommends the wrong thing. We've worked for the last 5 years to create some processes and patents around that to prevent it, which we believe are unique. But nevertheless, I think the key thing is that the user experience today in buying online, if I wanted to buy a food, a juicer, right? I wouldn't just go to a website and look at the juicers. I'd also go to YouTube and I'd see some bloke or some girl saying, hey, I've tried this juicer and I've tried that juicer and this one's really good and that one's not so good with strawberries and this one's really good with bananas and I don't know. So and you watch that for 30 minutes and you watch somebody else for 20 minutes and then you say, okay, I'm going to go with that food juicer. But if the AI engine on the retailer's site has already ingested all of those reviews, when you ask the question, you say, what's the best juicer? Say, well, on the internet, these reviewers think that this is the best one for these reasons, and I can ask questions of that salesperson, even though it's an AI-generated salesperson. I think that is the future. And I think retailers love the idea of that richer experience, but I think they also love the idea of the fact that I can come to that site and speak in Arabic or speak in Chinese or speak in any language and still get that level of intelligent response.
Yeah, and the rate of development, that how quickly that can be developed now, is incredible. Do you think there's an opportunity to create a barrier for entry going very deep in a vertical like that?
I think you have to go into a deep vertical in the case of AI. I think you have to be a specialist. I don't think that, I have a view about OpenAI and the sort of generic sources out there as being contaminated with bad data. And I think that there's going to be more and more instances of hallucinations and what's known as hallucinations where things go wrong. And I think that's going to be the case. And we'll see, right? But I think that the future is all about very tight vertical deployments of AI in a productive set of use cases. And so we're focusing initially on commerce and retail, but we believe our tech can be deployed in other areas. And we recently did a deal, announced a deal with the Saudi Arabian government to invest in verticals like construction, engineering, aerospace, and so on, to use our technology in other verticals. So we're not just, although I'm focused on commerce, our tech can be used elsewhere.
Awesome, exciting times. Dan, we're totally out of time, but parting words for this community of next generation of founders, entrepreneurs, thinking about putting businesses together, making that leap.
I've only got 3 words for you. Just go for. Just go for.
The other one is branded.
Actually, it's 4 words. 4 words. Just go for it.
Brilliant,
Just go for it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.